Hi there everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I am going to give a full review of the EMX-T45 tires from Tusk, and I'm going to give some reviews about durability, some rideability, and overall fun factor I've had with these tires. So I bought these tires with the intent of figuring out if I can have as much fun riding on a less premium tire, so a budget tire, as I have had on premium brands in the past, such as Dunlop. I've always ran Dunlops. I've always ran the AT82 up front, and then I've ran the MX-33 and the MX-34 in the rear, typically here in Ohio. The main reason I went with the T45 over the T35 EMX, I think that's how you say it, EMX tires, is I have this theory that even though they're a hard pack tire, they might not be as good as Dunlops right out of the box. However, I think the long-term durability game and the durability play of these tires could make them be a better tire for longer. So every time I've had Dunlops, right when you get them on the bike, they feel incredible. But after about 4 rides or so, they start to go back to feeling pretty worn out. And so I was hoping that buying a harder compound tire could have some better durability and give you some better feel for the long game. And that can help add to budget part of the build and keeping the cost of tire replacements down. So I've ridden these tires in 3 different conditions so far. The first day I rode these tires, the track conditions were very weird. It was a very deep cut in, how the track was, tilled and cut. However, I think they had a water truck issue that day, and so it ended up being like real deep, but kind of dry at the same time. So the track got very marbly, and it made for uneasy conditions on any tire you could be running out there. And it really, that day gave me a really hard time, especially with a set of fresh tires on the bike where I was expecting to go out and feel like I had all of this grip, and it really wasn't there like I had hoped. However, when I rode the trails on these tires, that's where they really shined. They felt really good on the trails. The trails I rode, some of them were wet, damp, weird, in the shadows of the woods. However, where it was more open space, it was dry and very hard packed, as trails typically are. And that's the day these tires shine the best. And then the last day I rode on these tires was about as perfect of a prep as you can get in July in Ohio. The track was about a medium cut with the perfect amount of water on it. I mean, right away when you got on the track, you could just hold it wide open everywhere, and it felt like you were just kind of surfing around, and it was a lot of fun. Any conditions, any tires you have in those conditions, we're going to feel really, really good right off the bat. But then that same day, as the track kind of broke in and worked itself in, it got a little bit more hard-packed and blue-grooved. So overall, the 3 hours I've put on these tires so far, I think I have a good grasp and a good feel for them to give them a good rideability review. But let's start with durability. So that's what I kind of bought these tires for, was some durability, see if I could get a tire that lasts long term and stays good longer. And I don't think 3 hours is enough time to give them a true durability review. However, so far, the tires have held up really well. They still look very new after 3 rides. Still have some very sharp edges, especially on these outer knobbies. And they even have some nipples left on the sidewalls of these knobbies, which maybe that's on me for not leaning the bike over more. Anyway, rideability. Let's start with the good part of these tires. The rear tire is so good and hooks so hard in any condition, and is as good as any Dunlop I've ever ridden. The only time I've ridden a Dunlop tire where it's maybe felt better is with the Scoop, I think it's the MX-14 Scoop tire at Redbud, When you have the MX-14 scoop tire at Redbud, it hooks up so hard and just gives you so much pull. However, this rear tire, like I said, I don't think, especially for a lot of amateur riders, I'm just an amateur rider, I'm not going to notice any difference in rideability from this rear tire as any other rear tire on the market. This thing hooked hard in loamy conditions as it did in hard pack conditions, and I didn't really have any issues with the tire wanting to slide out. Even under braking, it was very, very good. On to the bad. I had a little bit higher hopes for this front tire. The best way I could describe it is it felt uneasy and unpredictable out there on the track. One of my main concerns with the tire out of the box was the center knobbies are not very tall at all. And so in the loamy conditions, you really aren't getting any of that hookup. And even in the hard pack stuff, it still felt a little bit unpredictable. I am not one to lay the bike down very often, and I've maybe laid the bike down once all year until I've had these tires, and I'm going to be blaming this front tire here. I've laid the bike down 3 times since I've been running this front tire out of just, I think a lot of it is I've been hesitant because I don't trust the front tire to hook up when I need it to. And so coming into corners where I would usually be weighting the front, I feel like I'm kind of leaning back on the bike a little bit more and just having that hesitant feeling when I'm riding. And so I have not been a big fan of the front tire at all, really. In the trail conditions, this front tire was, in my opinion, just as good as the AT82 I was running from Dunlop. I think that's where this tire really is going to shine a lot better. Hard packed trail conditions. I think it's going to hold up really well in those conditions as well. But yeah, as far as riding this tire on the track, I was not a fan. The very first day I went out on these tires and I had the weird track conditions, I just tossed it up to, it was the track. I don't think any tire is going to be good on that track. It was really weird conditions, but even as I went back to the track on those perfect conditions, I still had a lot of those same exact feelings. One thing I have thought could be a great fix to that is not going back to a premium tire. However, running the Tusk EMEX-T45 tire on the front to help with a little bit of those softer conditions and give you a little bit more of a taller knobby in the middle, so you're having that hookup. And yeah, so another thing I noticed with this T45 front tire is it would feel so unpredictable, and it felt like it was going to wash coming into the turns. But then as soon as I would lean the bike over into a rut, especially when it would be hard, it was like the bike wanted to pull itself out of the rut immediately. It's like it would have no hookup and then all the hookup all at once, and then it would pull me out of the rut. And so that was a very odd feeling. So overall, not a fan of the front tire. It's felt very unpredictable, and it's given me a little bit of hesitancy in my riding, and I've laid the bike over a couple times because of it. So overall fun factor, I would say on the trails I had just as much fun with these tires as I had with premium tires. And on the track, I would say that I need to go back to a premium tire if the Tusk T45 front tire does not solve my feelings around this current front tire. Overall, I've really enjoyed the rear tire so much that I'm going to continue to run it, and I'm going to give this front tire a little bit more time to see if it can give me that same fun factor. However, it's just not cutting it for me. I have really enjoyed riding my Tusk built YZ250, and I'm really looking forward to getting this front end unpredictability figured out. And I think that if I can get that figured out, I could be having as much fun on a budget bike as I have been having on premium parts. Thanks for watching.